There it is. The executive director. So I came in, I brought a friend. I get these like puzzles, but I brought Starbucks. Like I got the Cardinals sick. I'm excited. You ready? So my only ask of you is I'm always afraid to afterwards. I'm always afraid to ask them. Yes to the
Under loving care, it's like straight to the kill.
really people. I like to see it.
And will you time today?
But my favorite thing is to come into the center. Yeah, they are. Yeah, man, I'm excited. Are you recording this live?
Yeah.
You made it, man. I told you I would. Well, actually, I get it done already. Excuse me. Next thing you can sit here. Let's do it. I'm going to grab a seat. How you been, man? Good.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Orlando. For those of you that don't know, and let me ask you this, how many of you are here for the first time today? Yay! Thank you, Ron and Rupert. We know you guys blasted out to your teams, so yay. Well, welcome. Your job as a brand new visitor is to do one thing. A, enjoy the process and participate in the process. And, sorry, that would be two things. And B, come back next week and bring a friend. So that's all we're asking of you, but we're glad that you're here. 1 Million Cups is a organization sponsored by the Kauffman Foundation, and across the country every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. communities get together to present and support entrepreneurial development in their community. We could not do this without our amazing sponsors. We have Torch Studios filming us, and I think we're live streaming at Canvas today, so everyone wave at Canvas. And we have Rollins Entrepreneurial Center, and Julie today from Rollins, the marketing team is here representing them, so we thank them so much. And the thing that keeps me talking this fast is the Barney's coffee that we're all enjoying. So yay, Barney's coffee for keeping us caffeinated. All of the organizers that put this together are all volunteers. So we do this because we love entrepreneurship in our community. And we work for Tweaks and we work for Love and Hugs. So Jan, wave. Isabella, wave. Stephanie. And I'm Angela, and I'm an organizer, and we have two former organizers in the audience, Ron and David, and we thank them for continuing to play and participate in the process. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up our first presenter today. I'm very excited. I have to admit that I have a personal relationship with this amazing group, helping them to do some of their PR marketing, but we are welcoming Burnout Game Ventures and Rupert.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. My name is Rupert Magnot from Burnout Game Ventures, where we incubate game ideas from 0 to sales in 6 months or less. The average takes 22 to 36 months, by the way. Who here plays games? Gamers? Oh yeah, great. Well, you could probably recognize these titles. These are multi-billion-dollar game titles. Now, when was the last time you heard of a movie doing $2 billion at the box office, right? In fact, the video game industry is actually larger than the worldwide film and TV industry. Not only that, but this recession-proof industry is growing between 8 and 12% a year consistently. So it's like, well, it's a massive industry, it's growing robustly, what's the problem? Well, the thing is 81% of all games created are what we call indie games, those developed by people that are unaffiliated by major studios. And the thing is they have a 95% failure rate. So I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute here. 40% growth over the next 4 years, where's it going to come from if all the people are failing? And then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, why are they failing? Well, just like me 35 years ago, when I was my first startup, these game entrepreneurs just don't know how to make a business out of their game idea, all right? They're focused on making games they want to sell, not necessarily games people want to buy, okay? And not only that, but they fail to plan. So their scope and their schedule and their marketing are basically going out the window, all right? So what I do is I've set up this program where we provide them access to all the talent they need, all the resources, all the proprietary processes, and the motivation they need in order to create great games that will sell, okay? So let's talk a little bit about talent. We currently have more than 275 people in our core talent pool, and through partnerships, another 2,500 more. We really don't have much problem finding people to work on our games, any more than anybody else does. And as far as clients are concerned, well, our clients in our talent pool are exactly the same demographic and the same target market, except our clients want to own their own studio. So in Orlando, there's a thing called Anynomicon, which is the independent games group. There's 1,300 people that are members of that. These are all potential talent or clients for BGV. And there's thousands, tens of thousands of these around the world. And couple that, so we're as scalable as you can get, right? I mean, I can have 5 offices in 5 years around the world. I can have 25, I can have 50. It just depends on the cash flow, right? So let's talk about the business model. Well, the primary component of our business model is that we are all entrepreneurs. Nobody gets paid until the game ships, including me, unfortunately. So the thing is when you remove salaries from the equation, what we're effectively doing is eliminating 75% of the cost of making a video game, all right? Remember those proprietary processes? They cut another 20% from the cost. So instead of $700,000 to $800,000 to invest per indie game, we are basically doing it for $5,000 to $15,000. Now, can you imagine what that does to our ROI? And where's the ROI coming from? Well, we're getting up to 50% of the net revenues of every game that we help develop for 3 years. Plus, we get 20% equity in the companies, up to 20% equity in the companies we help start as well. So, as you can imagine, here we've got mobile games, VR systems, PC console people. We're a mutual fund of video games, right? Look at our model, look at the fact that we're doing multiple games and genres, and we're probably the only game company that I certainly know of that doesn't need a hit to be successful, all right? So, our current status is I've been doing this full-time for 9 months. We have 132 game developers working for 10 startups, 7 of which I've created or helped create, working on 12 projects, and we've already released our first game, which was reviewed by PewDiePie. So, basically, who the heck am I? Well, I've got 35 years of entrepreneurial experience, mostly in high tech, and I taught aspiring game producers at the master's degree level project management processes, and these former students now are managing billions of dollars of game IP. And I've also put together a group of world-class advisors. We're talking guys who've worked on World of Warcraft, StarCraft, all the Marvel and Star Trek franchises, Alone in the Dark, Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed, helped Oculus get off the ground, and several top executives from EA, former top executives from EA. So I've got 15 of them now, and I'm adding more as we go along. And so basically, I've put about 80,000 into it so far, and that's just basically for all the resources and whatever that we need in marketing and whatnot. And yeah, don't forget that, right? So, you know, we're looking for additional funding, and mostly to provide 4 people, to bring in 4 salaried people to handle marketing, project management, production, and human resources. And so that's basically it. I realize this is the Guppy Bowl, so I'm here to receive your constructive criticism. Thank you.
All right, we're opening up the floor for questions. Well, I don't know who's first, so I'll start. Tell us about your first launch of your first game and what every launch looks like, Rupert.
Whatever launch looks like. Okay. Let me go back here and show the status. The typical game, like for instance, we use Steam for our, which is the world's largest digital distribution network, and we basically launched our first game on that. Let me get to it here real quick. So it's called Bit Evolution, and when you first start a game on Steam, you have to go through what they call a green light process, where you present your game to the community of Steam, and then they vote for you. The average game, 32% of the games that get into green light actually get greenlit, okay? And those that get greenlit usually take 17 months to do so. This game did it in less than 6. And then once you get out of that, then we went to the early access, which is like beta, right? So I made sure that it was a complete game, even though it wasn't like the full game. It was 2 levels and 2 worlds instead of 4, but it was a fully playable game. And only 36% of the people, of the games that go in through early access actually graduate from early access and get released. This game, and it usually takes 19 months to do it, we did it in 19 weeks. So we've sold several, about 10,000 or so units so far, and we're in the process of doing a 6-month marketing effort to get the game, because it usually takes about 6 months to get some traction. But that's basically what we do and how we do it. I hope that answered your question. Okay. Yes?
Are all of the games pay to download? Are you doing an advertising model in any of them, or is it mixed up between the various games?
We are looking at all different kinds. We have freemium mobile games we're working on. We're working on pay up front, 99 cent, $1.99 mobile games. We've got console games, PC-based, Mac, you name it. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Right here, Rupert.
Hey, Bill.
Most brilliant presentation.
Thank you.
So kudos on that. So hypothetically, I have an idea for a couple hundred video games. I come to you and I say, hey, I want to build this game. Can you walk me through what that process looks like?
Well, the first thing we have to do is you got to keep in mind that we've got enough business to last 12 to 18 months right now, and we've got so basically what you do is you have to pitch us your game idea, right? And so I give you 8 minutes, right? Because Einstein said if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it, right? So in 8 minutes, they've got to tell us exactly what their game is about, so we know enough about what the game is. Who their target market is, what the budget is going to be, the bootstrap budget's going to be, as well as a path to profitability. And once they get that, I look at it. If I like it, then I give it to my team, my PMO, and they look at it. And if we approve it, then we bring them in, and then I let them loose on the talent pool. And so once they get the talent pool situated, they get their team situated, then they spend the first month going through my project management course, which people have threatened suicide many times and so forth, but basically it's a badass course. So at the end of that first month, they haven't started working on the game yet because they need to plan it first. So at the end of that first month, they've got their project charter with all their objectives and goals and everything all laid out and stakeholders. They've got their game design document, their tech design document, their work breakdown structure, and their capacity plan, all mapped out in that first month. Okay, and then the second month, while the team is starting to develop the game, I put the PMO or the project management office of the team through another 4 weeks of business development, finance and accounting, marketing and sales and PR and all these other areas of instruction. And then while the team is working on the game, and within 6 to 12 months, they've got a title. Does that answer your question?
It did, and the follow-up on that is, if I simply wanted to bring you the idea and hand it off and take a cut, or commission it myself.
I'm open to that.
Okay.
Sure. Oh, come on. There's got to be more questions than
Around here, they use me to improv until people get ideas and things to think about. A thought hit me several years ago. Put together a funding group, and it was kind of like a mutual fund of projects that were 10M to 10B, which is kind of what you're doing. You've got a mutual fund here of games, right? It got to a point where, to qualify who we wanted to even bring in, we decided to establish a grading system that they took the test themselves and graded their own business plans. If they scored 70 or higher, we looked at it. I think you're going to get to a point where when people get wind of what you got, so one question is, how are you getting to the gamers? When they get wind of what you got, you're going to have a real onslaught. You'll be busy just listening to 8-minute presentations, and you can be around the clock.
Well, actually, what I do is I get about 2 or 3 a week. And what I do is I have a rubric, and it's on the website, so the people who are applying can download the rubric and our policies and procedures for applying to pitch. And then I grade them on that rubric, and they have to do at least 80% in order for me to even go further. And then we go with that process, yeah.
Are you familiar with Cheyenne?
Rings a bell.
Yeah, they do billions in the gaming industry. Okay, well, now I'm just curious, because are you looking, what is your exit strategy?
Exit strategy is basically just a buyout.
That's what Cheyenne.
Yeah, so, or, just basically, I'm looking at convertible debt, because a lot of people have come to me about convertible debt. I'm like, sure, I'm fine with that. But it just depends. I'm open at this point, because I'm trying to, games, I mean, 10% a year growth doesn't even include education. Okay? Can you imagine what will happen? We're 28th in the world in education. And when you look at the other 27 and you say, what do they have that we don't have? And you look and they got games in the classroom. So can you imagine the explosion in the growth of the industry that would happen if we could actually start getting games into the classroom? And these indie game studios are the ones that are going to do it, because they're going to come up with stuff really fast. They're going to be moving them out, and they need a conduit to get them into the classroom. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking at as well.
I got a quick question. How do you track the performance of the artists and all the staff that was working on the game? Do you have any analytics or some type of system?
This is part of the, how do we track performance? So this is part of the proprietary processes that I helped develop. We've gamified our project management processes for game development. So we keep track of the time that you put into it, and the tasks, and the degree of tasks that you do, and you generate points for that, so that whenever a check comes in, we just divide your points by the points that the team generated, and cut your check, and have a nice day.
Got a question.
Yes, sir. I have a grandson. At 5 years old, he was actually critiquing adults on playing online games. So getting this in the classroom is amazing, because I see the difference that it makes. My question is, of course, with your ability to turn around time so quickly versus what's out there in the real world, is it proprietary information? But what do you do differently that is to have that ability to get it out there so quickly versus what all the big companies are doing?
Okay, see this foot right here? This foot right here is my proprietary ability, okay? What I do is we have proprietary project management processes that have been designed to ensure efficient use of time and productivity with regard to getting the games out there. Now keep in mind that the typical person that works on our teams is averaging 10 to 20 hours a week. They're not working full time. Yes, we have some teams that are working 40, 50 hours a week or so, but our target market is people that already have jobs, or they're paying their bills because they're not getting paid for the games. So, or they're students, or whatever the case may be. And so we've designed the production process with that in mind. So
Pretty much.
So you just had shared that your team, you pay them in some type of capacity. How is it that you pay your team members, the people that are your interns?
It's through revenue share.
Okay.
It's all revenue share, yeah. So whenever the game sells, then we get the check from Steam or Apple or Xbox or Microsoft or whatever, and then they cut BGV their share, and then they divide up amongst the team based on the points that everybody's generated.
So you use a tracking system of some type of a, I don't know if it's
Yes.
proprietary,
Yeah.
so yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I like questions. Any more questions?
What does your internal course look like?
My course?
Yeah, that business course that you put them through.
Well, the project management course is basically, you know, I'm giving them homework, right? And it's 10 classes, and I cover all the areas of project management. So it's scope, schedule, cost, quality, human resources, communications, integration, procurement, risk management, and all that. And so, you know, like I said, by the end of the month, they've got all the planning documentation they need. And let's face it, a plan isn't complete until the project's complete. But at least it's like waterfall. We have like 95% of the game is planned at that point in time. So then, and I usually set aside 20% of the schedule to do all the planning up front, and then the rest of the time we're at much higher efficiency because of that. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I was curious what type of contract you have with your programmers as far as getting involved on a project, and what's the fall-off rate? Like, I can imagine that there would be some programmers that would start and never finish the job. So how do you manage the people that are working on each game?
Everybody comes in and works directly for our client company, not for us. And they sign a work for hire agreement stipulating that they're working for the revenue share portion of it. And we ask them to put at least 10 hours a week in, though, like I said, most people do 15 to 20. And our fall-off rate, well, we actually experimented with paying people. And of the people that we paid, 78% of them were, or 76% of them were gone within 3 months. On the other hand, of the 167 other people that we haven't paid so far that are strictly revenue share, 78% of them are still with us. And that's been going on, and the average person's been with us for about 10 months. So don't tell me anything about, hey, they gotta be paid. No, these are entrepreneurs. These are people that are driven, they're passionate, and they really want to make their businesses work.
So we have a question from our YouTube chat function.
Awesome.
So the live stream works, great. Would you be willing to engage a client from a different location, for example, different city, different state, country?
Yes, of course. I'm speaking to people right now from, let's see, Colombia, Germany, and Canada. So yeah, I'll talk to anybody. We're all remote right now, so I mean, with 275 people in our pool, we got 132 working for us now. It's like, they're all over the place. Yeah. In fact, one of my project managers for my VR project, we've got patents in virtual reality and simulation, so one of our VR project managers is in Ireland.
Okay, so it looks like that's all of our questions, and in the spirit of 1 million cups, we always ask this as a standard question, is what can we do for you right now?
Well, what you can do for us right now is, first of all, you can support our game. Go to Steam, look up Bit Evolution, and that game is like $8.99, $9.99, depending on if there's a sale going on right now. Send us talent. If you know an artist, you know especially programmers. Programmers are in really short supply everywhere. You know, introduce us to potential investors.
Okay, thank you very much. So, make sure that you know what his handle is, so that his Twitter handle, and go ahead and tell us again, Rupert, what is your Twitter handle, so everybody knows what to look for?
The Twitter handle is @BurnGameVen.
Great, it's up there on the screen, just so you know who to look for. We would like to go ahead and say thanks again to Barney's Coffee, and we welcome you all to go ahead and go get some coffee. Again, just so you have, we're getting ready for our next presentation. We also want to give thanks again to Rollins for giving us this really great space. And then also thanks to all of the organizers. And thank you to everybody that showed up today. We always love that you're here and that you brought more people in. I was counting the numbers. And we have quite high numbers today, so we want to say thanks to our two presenters also because they did that. And when you have the mic, just so you know, we need to make sure that when you're asking a question that you hold the mic up next to you so we can get this all live streamed out to Canvas. We're going to be expanding our outreach into other areas. And then we also make sure that our Kansas City Kauffman Foundation, who gives us this great 1 million cups concept too, we want to tell them thank you, and they can hear us then. So are we ready? Okay, the next presenter is Sqygl. Oh yes, oh sorry, sit down Ron, sorry. We have a video, we have 1 million cups competition. We're not done, yeah. We have the 1 million cups competition that's going on, so this is a good time to go get your coffee if you have already seen the video. But next week is the last week where a company can come and pitch and be eligible. So Stephanie's gonna play the video and then you'll be able to see what the qualifications are.
We're looking for 1 in a million. What does 1 in a million look like? Have you ever seen it? Does it look like this? Or this? If you've ever presented at a 1 million cups gathering held every week in more than 70 locations across the country, then maybe 1 in a million looks like you. This year, for the first time ever, open exclusively for 1 million cups entrepreneurs, the 1 in a million Startup Showdown will be a featured event during Global Entrepreneurship Week. 1 in a million was created to provide educational resources to entrepreneurs and showcase some of the stellar startups in the 1 million cups community. 15 finalists will be selected to come to the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City on November 17th and 18th, where they will receive coaching and gain valuable insights to sharpen their startups. The top 5 startups will be selected to take the stage for a first-of-its-kind Wednesday morning presentation that will be streamed live to all 1 million cup sites across the country. The winning startup takes home $10,000. Here's what you need to know. Your startup must have presented at a 1 million cups before August 2nd, 2015. Your startup must be younger than 5 years old and based in the United States. Your startup should have plans to grow with a scalable and disruptive business model. Don't wait to submit your company for this nationwide competition. 1 in a million will accept applications through August 7th. That's it. Actually, there's more to it than that, so visit us on the web to learn more about how your startup can become 1 in a million.
Welcome up to the stage, David and Ron. Thank you so much. They're with Sqygl.
So you guys thought you were getting rid of me when I left, and no such luck. And several of you said, why are you leaving? And I said, I'm really busy. And they looked at me like, really? You've been doing this for 2 years, suddenly you're busy? And yes. So I want to tell you a little bit more about why I'm busy and what we're trying to do as we're launching this. Like every good startup, it starts with a story. And mine happens to be in Germany about 6 months ago. I was on a business trip and I faced a dilemma. And the dilemma was that I had to go back to Europe. And I had to go to 3 different cities over a 15 days period. And I didn't care which city went first, second, or third. I just cared about money. Because it was on a tight budget. Because yes, I have another startup. So I went to Google, because I figured Google is my friend. But unfortunately, it's not really. Because I had to drink from a fire hose to solve what I thought was actually a simple problem. So this just is a little glimpse of all the various websites that are out there that can help you solve a travel challenge. Turns out mine didn't have a ready-made solution. at least not efficient, at least not simple. I could sit there and go again and again and figure out I can go to A to B to C, then C to B to A, follow me? That's the kind of calculations that I would have to do that would have taken me a lot of time to actually resolve. So, every entrepreneur asks that question. Am I the only one with that problem? There's only one way to figure that one out, which is to come back and validate and validate and validate. And ask a lot of questions to a lot of people. And then came that moment. I had to PG that. And the reason I had to come up with that moment is because I figured out that no, I'm not alone. I'm not the only tree in the forest. There are a lot of other people around me that face the same problem. Like, okay, great, now what? The more we dove into this, the more we figured out that people were really caring about 3 specific things. One of them was money. How much is it going to cost, and how much money can I save if I go to multiple cities during my trip? The second one was time. What's the most efficient way to actually do that? And surprisingly enough, there's a segment of the population that doesn't care about money. How nice. They don't really care about time. They care about miles. What's the fastest way for me to accumulate the most miles along the way as I travel? Like, okay, never thought about that really, because again, I'm on a startup budget. I care about the cheapest way to do this. So I figured, okay, now I have a problem, and I know I can't do it alone. Interestingly enough, during my validation, I spoke to a former Priceline founder. Got him on the phone. I make it sound easy. It took more than 3 weeks. And when I got him on the phone, I pitched my idea, and I said, hey, invalidate my assumption. What am I not seeing, and what am I doing wrong? And he said to me, A, I get pitched a lot of travel startups ideas. I'm like, well, figure that much. And he said, I never heard of yours, and I would have used it 2 weeks ago. Like, crap. Now I need to do something with this. So again, I'm not a tech guy. I understand how the tech works, and I understand how to make it work for me, but I had to bring someone on board. And I brought David. And I make it sound easy, I actually begged.
I love having my face this big on the screen.
So David joined the team as a technical co-founder, and in the last 4 months since all that has occurred, we've done a variety of things, including giving birth to Sqygl. So don't go on Sqygl.com, it is not up yet. Don't tweet at me and say its site is broken. We know, and we'll talk about why in a moment. But people say to me, where do you come up with the name Sqygl, and why is that name used? A, it's still hard to find 5-letter names on a .com, so I'm pretty proud of myself. But the reason I went there is because in my mind's eye, all I could see was a really messy, squiggly line approach to trying to figure out this problem, because it's a very complex algorithm trying to figure out all these various pieces. So, hence the birth of the word and the name Sqygl. And then a friend of mine said, ooh, you can use that as you can squiggle it. Did you squiggle it? I loved it. And David hated it because he's an IP lawyer, and all he can think of is, it's going to have an impact in 20 years. I'm okay with that. So really, what are we solving? We're solving multi-city travel. You want to go to multiple places during your trip. And we're solving this in a particular way. We're solving it, hopefully, in a simple way. You pick a destination's number of nights. It's actually, we just tweaked that, it just happened. So it's longer days, it's nights. Tell us what matters to you. Remember, money, time, or miles. And then we will squiggle it for you. So, obviously, validation, validation, validation. Who appeared to be our customer? And who are we going after? So, obviously, it's a consumer-facing platform. And the first consumer that we validated along the way and we looked at were student population. They all go backpacking. And we keep on talking about US to Europe, although it's also a US-specific opportunity, Europe, and so on and so forth. But right now, we're talking about the American market. So the student is an opportunity. The leisure travel, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then The elephant in the room is a corporate travel. So the approach of the process is to really provide a more valid, a greater validation through the consumer-facing platform, and then go after the corporate travel, which is where we think really most of the money is. And remember why. People care about money. People care about time. People care about miles. And interestingly enough, people give us an additional opportunity. They said, hey, I'm going to go to Paris on a wedding trip, and I have to be there for 3 days. Bless you. But I have 2 weeks vacation coming to me while I'm in Europe. For those 3 days, I can leave X days before and X days after. So I want to go to London, Berlin, Rome, and Barcelona. Solve that for me. And we can do that by anchoring the middle trip along the way and providing with solutions on the other side. So obviously the big question is, how do you make money at this? And we discovered that you really don't make a lot of money selling airline trips. You really don't. There are very, very thin margins in that process, which is why virtually every website says, hey, you want a hotel room? Hey, how about a car? Hey, how about? So the upsell is where the money is. We don't have that luxury, because right now we're solving a very specific consumer-facing problem, so we're going to have to monetize in a slightly different way. And if you've ever used Priceline, Priceline solves your problem, but doesn't tell you how until you actually fork the money forward. And then they say, oh, by the way, your car rental is Hertz. We are going to do the same thing and charge the customer for solving that problem. So instead of spending 3 days a week, however long you want to spend trying to figure out multi-city travel, would you pay $20 for that solution? That's one question that we have for you guys. The next thing is, along the way is, and I skipped the slide. So the market size obviously is dramatic. We didn't realize how big it was. And then the next step on the monetization piece is providing a platform that actually allows a corporate consumer, travel agencies, yes, they still exist, travel agents are still out there, to be able to respond quickly to the demand and solve the problem even faster. So we're getting to the end of our presentation, and I've been here before, I kind of know a little bit how this works. So our ask of you guys is fairly simple. It's on this. And yes, we're also looking for funding. So if you know someone that is intrigued by this particular industry and may want to also participate financially, we'd love to have the conversation. We're ready for your questions.
I think it always helps if an organizer gets things started. So my question is, you're doing a lot with Europe. Is it just airfare, or are you putting rail travel in?
So at the beginning, it's going to start just with air because it's the simpler approach. But ultimately, we're going to add a variety of different things. So for example, you want to go to these 3 or 4 cities or 5 cities, and we can solve for you and say, oh, by the way, it may cost more an airline, but there's a sale right now at Marriott in Paris, and you can save $100 per night on a hotel, so your overall trip now becomes cheaper. So we're playing with everything, because ultimately the real money is not on airlines, it's on hotels and the car rentals.
So first off, great idea. I literally spent about 2 days last week trying to figure out travel for Jeff and I for a 4-day trip. My question to you is there any chance of doing something where, and I don't know if your app does, or if your software does this, but for Jeff and I, because he lives in Switzerland and I live in Orlando and we're going to Seattle. So being able to get us on flights that get in near the same time is very useful and nearly impossible for me. And I'm wondering if that could be something, maybe for the corporate side, that might be real useful, because if they're coming from all these different destinations, corporate people don't tend to want to sit in an airport, so they're going to charge their company and they're going to go sit in like the United Club or something like that. It might be cheaper for the company to be able to put them all in one place at the same time.
David is just contemplating more sleepless nights after you just said that.
Happy to help.
Well, I could definitely see that as an enhancement. We can mark it as an enhancement request. But really, that's just a question of setting multiple origin airports, so that does make the calculations more complicated, obviously, and it's not like we don't have enough complications in this. But yeah, I mean, I will take it as an enhancement request, and hopefully, you know, at launch, I can't say we'll have that feature, but maybe 6 months down the road, we'll look at it.
Ron, I would absolutely use the service, and I would pay for it if it incorporated hotel and car rental. Because I find when I travel domestically, hotel plus car rental is about the same order of magnitude as the cost of airfare. So for me, if I can say that there's a particular deal on a particular hotel, if I can shift my dates by one day, if the hotel's $300 a night, but I only, I can save $400 by shifting my, if I save $200 by shifting my flights, but I have to pay $300 more for an extra night in a hotel, that's a pretty big deal. So if you can work in hotel and car, it's not only good for your business model, it's good for me. That's something I would now be willing to pay for.
Thank you. 2 validations, love it.
All right, quick question. It doesn't sound like your product's out there yet, but have you done any like Wizard of Oz testing to see, I'm sure people would pay for this service, but to figure out what they would pay for it?
So on the MVP piece that we're currently deploying, or will be deploying soon, it will be there. So we're going to gate it and say, hey, what is this worth to you? Would you pay 10, 20, 30, 50? Obviously, it could be commensurate with the cost of the travel. So that's the next step, which is one of the things we're holding back, and we've been bouncing back and forth a little bit on, are we ready to launch with an MVP with an ugly consumer-facing platform, or should we wait for a UI designer to join the team to help us make this a little prettier and simpler? Because as you can imagine, it can get really complex really fast. And the key to this is not just, the key to this will live or die on the execution of the UI, period. I don't see this in any other way. So based upon that, that's where we're focused on. So I'm pulling back a little bit. We know the system works. We've done this, we've validated this up to 7 cities today. So we know it works. Now we just need to make sure that A, we're gonna make a consumer-facing and corporate-facing platform that makes sense, and B, figure out the financials behind it, because I don't know if you guys know this, but every time you go online to search for a flight, the company that does the search actually gets charged for that. A penny, 2 pennies, 3 pennies, it depends on the cost. So as you can imagine, because we're doing 7 cities, 5 cities in a bunch of different ways, those costs add up really quickly. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now.
Okay, another question from YouTube. I'd like to know about your competitors. Do you have any? Who are they, and what are your differentiators?
All right, so we discovered along the way that we do have a competitor by the name of Vamo, VAMO.com, that has actually raised several millions of dollars there. It's an American company that is focused dramatically and primarily right now on the inter-European market. What we've discovered is that their approach is different than ours. Even though they're solving this, they tend to appear on the front end much more like a travel agency. Hey, we have 5 city trips in this area. Like, most people, I don't think, care. They want to solve their problem. They don't want you to push their solutions on them. So we're happy that we're not alone in the market, because that validates the process. It also makes us think that if we can execute better and provide a better solution that fits what we have validated, we're going to ramp up a lot faster and have a bigger impact.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I use a lot of travel sites almost every time I travel. And I noticed that many of them do not incorporate Southwest Airlines, for example. So when I'm looking for air travel, a lot of times Southwest isn't included. What are you going to do to ensure that when I use you, you incorporate every airline that's available, or every train that's available, or whatever's out there, so I know that you guys have done all the work for me?
So the reason Southwest is not incorporated is because Southwest will not allow it, period. So they will not allow a third party to rep them, and that's why it's gated. However, if you go to a site called Hipmunk, like a chipmunk but without the C.com, in their lineup, they will say, hey, Southwest flies there. we just can't tell you anything about it, and we can't help you book it. So they solve that piece. Obviously, we're not interested in that, because if ultimately we're going to make money on the other aspect of it, we're going to have to say, hey, if you want Southwest, that's one airline that's going to one city, may not necessarily solve your problem, so may the force be with you. If you want us, we'll provide you other options. That's.
Hey, Ron. First off, love the product. Question for you. I saw that you were saying that there's 6 million Americans traveling multiple cities every year. I know as a frequent traveler, I have a couple of defaults, like kayak that pops up top of mind. How do you guys plan to get ahead or in front of those 6 million people to become an option before some of these other sites do?
So there's a really ugly truth out there, which is the amount of money that travel sites are spending to get in front of the consumer when they're doing search. So Travelocity spends $1.5 million on pay-per-clicks, on buying keywords. So $1.5 million per day. So they spend $500 million to make sure they rise up to the top. So obviously we can't compete with them at that level. The plan is to be able to first deploy a really good product that people enjoy using. And I'll go back to the Hipmunk, the Hipmunk business model. It is, they do what everybody else is doing. They're doing nothing special compared to the kayaks and Travelocities and Expedias and Orbits of the world, but they do it better. It's simpler, it's nicer, and they actually charge a little more. But it's just such a pleasure to use that they've just skyrocketed in the number of users. So that's why I go back to, it has to be an amazing experience that's very simple to use so that people will go back, and then start pushing it out to, obviously, the organic approach to growth, and leverage that out as we get A, traction, and B, money infusion, either through revenue or through investment, to continue and get in front of other people. Yep.
Are you just in Europe right now, or have you thought about doing this inside the U.S.? Like, I want to plan a family vacation and hit all the major U.S. milestones. Is that something that you do?
Absolutely. We're not, we just talked about Europe in particular, but we're not gated. So Vamo, as an example, gated itself to only solving inter-European travel, multimodal, multi-city. We are, when we go live, we're going to solve, hey, you want to go to New York, DC, Boston, Philadelphia? Absolutely. We'll be ready to do that. So we're going to approach both markets at once.
Actually, that was part of what my question was, because considering economy, et cetera, so many families are staying in the United States, so much to see here. To make your money, since you don't make that much on the airline, and you make it on the rest, to sell packages that a cheap flight to one destination and then anchor there, rent, travel, et cetera, go from there. Your money-making process in the U.S. could be so much greater than out of the U.S.
Absolutely. That's why we're not segregating one market or ignoring one market for the other. Our intent is to go to both, provide options that current sites really don't provide. So include Airbnb, for example. So now you can go ahead and select an Airbnb as an option instead of just a traditional hotel. So there's a lot of the Uber. You don't want to, rent a car. You're going to be in New York City, but you don't want necessarily to get in a cab. Let's get an Uber and go home. So our intent is to really leverage the existing tools to help us grow organically and make an impact into that marketplace.
All right, so this is a third question from YouTube, and same guy. It's Tito Sosa.
Hi, Tito.
He's in Jacksonville. Get this, he was planning on driving down this morning, but his wife started having contractions, so he's at the hospital watching. Good job, bud. So his third question is, farmers will oftentimes include a recipe that involves a featured product. What is your recipe that you include with your itinerary? And then as a side note, who does your hair? I love it.
Oh my God, Tito. So our secret sauce, I think one of the things that will really separate us from everyone else is the anchoring capability. So you're going to a particular city for a particular reason, and while you're there, you're going to travel to a bunch of different places. That's really where we're going to differentiate. The cities in a hopper, put the target time travels that you want to do and the number of nights in each city and let us solve it for you. So those are two things that really are a key differentiator in the marketplace today.
Okay, I just spent a week doing this, trying to do travel plans to go to Europe. So sounds like an awesome product. When you talked about the $20, that's regardless of the number of cities, correct?
Again, right now it's a question. What would it be worth to you if instead of spending a week, you spend 5 minutes in solving that problem? So rather than me telling you this is what you're going to pay, I'd rather ask you what would that be worth to you? And once we define that, we can say for 3 cities it's X, for 4 cities it's Y, and so on and so forth, because now it's exponential with the cost of the travel. On the flip side, once we really go live and start building some relationships with the other platforms, then perhaps we can back off of that and be able to just leverage the cost of, the fees back from the partners as we're providing, because we don't want to get into the booking business. I just want to provide you the information and then tie you into a platform that will actually allow you to book through them. And so they will then pay us. And if that's enough, then we can back off on, hey, pay us this. So again, we're playing with a couple different monetization processes.
Okay, and you also talked about doing trains maybe
Yeah.
down the road. Okay.
Absolutely. Trains, buses, ferries, particularly in Europe, is a great, it's a big part of the travel industry, so yes.
Okay, thank you.
Two-part question. One, users expect real-time data all the time, instant access, so do you have a strategy around that? And second, how are you going to take on Google?
So, Google's having its own problems right now. They're shutting down Google Plus. So maybe they're a little busy. That being said, no one currently solves this problem. Do they have enough coders that they could come behind us and solve this? Yes, I would prefer to see that they see this as a market opportunity and just write me a check. So obviously that's the long term. No one today solves this problem the way we're describing it. And that problem exists, as validated today in the room by almost a half a dozen people who said, oh my gosh, yeah, I would use this. So that's our approach. The second piece is very interesting because the calculations are just tremendous. If you guys have ever heard of the traveling salesman problem, this is actually the traveling salesman problem on steroids. Because we're adding the anchor piece in the middle. We're adding a variety of other things. So we're going to have to gate it at some point and say we can't solve beyond a certain number of cities because we're going to shut down and overwhelm the processing capabilities. So we will tell them, if you want to go to 20 cities, do 10 and 10. So.
Just a quick follow-up. The other option too there is, maybe we're real time up to, like we said, 7 cities, and after that we'll say, we're going to have to put our team of crack chipmunks on this and get back to you, in an hour. We'll send you an email with a follow-up. That would probably most likely be our strategy there, but we'll see how the performance is. Obviously, we're communicating a lot of data in the back end, and so that takes up a tremendous amount of time, running all those searches. So it just depends on the performance of our providers as well.
As a researcher, I do this sort of thing all the time, believe it or not. I am interested in finding an easy way to aggregate lots of disparate information and plan it. There are really 2 questions. I guess one's a suggestion as for pricing, that instead of doing a per party payment, that you do a per person payment. And that way, individuals who are traveling on their own as independent business owners or entrepreneurs would have a low enough barrier of entry that they would want to take advantage of this, but then as their business grows, it would be a value to them already and would be willing to pay to get their party to travel with them. And then kind of building off of that, the question that I have for you is, would you allow people to have, say, not only an anchor city, but an anchor transit? Like if, for instance, the business was paying for their flight, like if they were paying for an entire group to travel on a specific airliner, would you allow them to plan that in as that transit as a part of the anchor that your algorithm would plan around?
So just to make sure I understand, it's then setting up, once they arrive in that particular country, from another standpoint, and take that from there and calculate?
Well, my theory is like, just assume the situation that, say everyone's driving together. They're renting a bus and they're driving to Cincinnati, Ohio. But before they get to Cincinnati, Ohio, they want to take a couple of days in, I don't know, some related city. But then they know they're going to be traveling for this amount of time and staying in this place. Are you going to allow that transit to be a part of, say, I want to fly to Oklahoma City, and I want to spend a couple of days in Oklahoma City visiting my relatives. But then I know that I need to be back here or in another city to be able to travel to my anchor city with someone else, or from my anchor city with someone else? Are you going to basically allow people not only to place the dots, but also place some of the lines?
Absolutely. I think as a next step, as a phase 2, phase 3, as a 2.0, 3.0, we can provide some additional flexibility in the design of the travel, so that way it appeals to a greater number of people. So, great.
Okay, you identified the market, you identified what the problem was, you believe you have a solution. I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, well, why would I want to go out and market this to the consumer myself when you could take every single one that was on that Google page and they're your customers?
So yes, that's my corporate customer ultimately. And you know, when I stay up at night and vision this, I see American Express Travel powered by Sqygl. I see American Express Travel powered by, Google powered by Sqygl. Wouldn't that be nice? Google powered by Sqygl. And so on and so forth. So ultimately, that's really our money-making proposition will be in the corporate world in some way, shape, or form, and that's going to evolve as we grow through the process.
So that wraps up our question and answer portion, except for our one last, basically you've mentally planted in our mid, so what can we do for you as a community?
And here you go. So obviously we're only on Twitter right now, so use that if you need to reach us and spread the word. Keep an eye out for the launch of the website. Most of you know who we are. We've been here quite a while. Reach out to us and send us an email and say, hey, keep me posted as you go live, because we're going to need alpha testers. We're going to need beta testers. And obviously we need a lot of other things along the way, so we're counting on you guys, our community, to provide us with that support, guidance, and feedback. So thank you very much.
All right, well, that wraps up 1 Million Cups for today. Thanks again to all of our sponsors. Thank you, our attendees, for coming. I also want to recognize really quick Melissa Wasserman, who has set us up for streaming at Canvas, so a big thank you to her. And Capona Curry, who is doing a lot of outreach in the community for us out at UCF. And again, our sponsor, Rollins. Julie, thanks for coming today. We appreciate you. Okay, everybody, see you next Wednesday.
Don't forget, August 10th, we're doing our first after-hours celebration, and it's for all of our applicants for our competition that's national. So we're going to push that through social media, but have a good Wednesday.
We're looking for 1 in a million. What does 1 in a million look like? Have you ever seen it? Does it look like this? Or this? If you've ever presented at a 1 Million Cups gathering held every week in more than 70 locations across the country, then maybe 1 in a million looks like you. This year, for the first time ever, open exclusively for 1 Million Cups entrepreneurs, the 1 in a Million Startup Showdown will be a featured event during Global Entrepreneurship Week. 1 in a Million was created to provide educational resources to entrepreneurs and showcase some of the stellar startups in the 1 Million Cups community. 15 finalists will be selected to come to the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City on November 17th and 18th, where they will receive coaching and gain valuable insights to sharpen their startups. The top 5 startups will be selected to take the stage for a first-of-its-kind Wednesday morning presentation that will be streamed live to all 1 Million Cup sites across the country. The winning startup takes home $10,000. Here's what you need to know. Your startup must have presented at a 1 million cups before August 2nd, 2015. Your startup must be younger than 5 years old and based in the United States. Your startup should have plans to grow with a scalable and disruptive business model. Don't wait to submit your company for this nationwide competition. 1 in a Million will accept applications through August 7th. That's it. Actually, there's more to it than that, so visit us on the web to learn more about how your startup can become 1 in a million.